So I just left this pretty old school machine shop. Really neat to see in there. And they said that the valve that I showed you in the last video is definitely burnt. It looked like it had a chip in it. He said that's a burn. He said it'll look like when you take it out of there, you'll see it looks like it was hit with a torch. So it's actually melted. They're going to do a vacuum test on it to see if it has any leaks or cracks. If not, then I guess we'll move forward with getting it resurfaced, replace the valves, the guides, or the seals anyway. He told me the engine shouldn't have any problems if I don't see any cracks in the cylinder or on that surface. So there's really no explanation as to why I was getting compression in the cooling system, if I was in fact getting compression in the cooling system. It seemed like it. Not too much of an explanation for that, unless it was leaking past the gasket. But main thing is to see if the head's okay. If it is, then we move forward.
Welcome to my cluttered garage. You know I'm really glad you're here. Yeah.
Well, good news, kind of, I think. Well, I dropped the head off and the machine shop called me within a couple of days and they said, hey, we don't even need to vacuum test this head. We started to clean it up and we found a crack. So I guess the good news there is I know what the problem was, or at least what the symptom of the problem was. And I don't know what the series of events were that caused it. That's the only thing I'm not sure of. Like, did the head crack first, causing the engine to overheat and creating pressure in the cooling system and then burst the radiator hose? Or did the radiator hose burst, causing the engine to overheat and then causing a crack in the head? I don't know. But at any rate, that head is no good. So I went ahead and ordered a new head casting. And the machine shop took that new head. They took the parts out of my old head, the valves, the springs, the rockers, everything except for that one valve that was burned. And they were able to put that in the new head. They said there's no issue in using those valves, no need to replace them. They ground them and seated them, so we should be good to go. Let me show you what they found with the old head. So here is the old head. It's flipped upside down. The valves have all been removed, and the crack that the machine shop found is right here. Now, this is not a great close-up camera, but I think you can see that crack right between these two cylinders, and that crack leads right to a coolant port there. So what was happening was coolant, I guess, was coming through the crack, entering into, this is where the burnt valve was. So anyway, cracked head, no good. Now that exhaust valve, remember it had that chip in it. It looked like a chip. It's not a chip, it's actually a burned valve. You look at the bottom of it, that almost looks like it was hit with a torch, and that's from probably water, hot water jetting past it, causing it to burn out. So that's why that's no good. Now off to the side here is the brand new head, and this is, I believe it's not remanufactured. I think it's a brand new casting. Again, the machine shop put the valves and the springs back in. The rockers I just had to screw back in place. I put the spark plugs in ahead of time because I figured it'd be easier just to put them in now. So that makes me feel good, and I'm ready to try and drop this in place. I guess you could say I finally got ahead in life. Okay, brand new gasket. Lines right up nicely. Now getting the head in might be fun. Just climb up in here. Problem is I can't set it straight down because of these wires here. But I can inch it back, right? There we go. Okay. And my gasket shifted, of course. All right. It's dropped in place. I just want to make sure I can seat them all by hand first before using any tools. Something just fell to the ground. There's one of these little bolts. There's a specific sequence for tightening down these head bolts, starting at 22 pounds of torque, and then 46, and then ultimately 110 pounds for each of the head bolts. Oddly, except for this one, they call this one number 7, and they say to torque that one only to 100. So I've gone through, torqued them all down, and then tested them by using the torque wrench to check. They're all at 110, except for number 7, which is at 100. I don't know why, and this was a forum I saw online, so I'm just going to trust that. These are all my original rockers. I kind of wish they would have marked them because they're just loose in the box. So I would have liked to put them exactly where they were, but maybe it doesn't matter. Come on. Starting in the back, since that's the most difficult location. I have to leave them loose so I can put the push rods in place. Now here are all the push rods, and I numbered them, little flag on each one, 1 through 8, starting with number 1 at the front. So here's the 8th one. I'll just drop this in the back, and I'll line them up after I get them in place. All right, so I've got all the lifters and rocker arms back in place, torqued to specifications. Actually, it said like 19 to 26 pounds, which isn't very much. I would have went tighter than that, but I'm following the orders that I found online. And although the exhaust and intake manifold were one of the first things I took off, so they would therefore be one of the last things I put on, I'm going to put those on next. That way I can see what I'm doing, and then I'll put the valve cover on after that. So next step is going to be messing with this intake and exhaust. They're still connected to everything, so they're just sitting there. As long as I can slide the gasket in place and get all the bolts started, it should be okay. Brand new intake and exhaust gasket. One side has the gasket material, the other side is metal, and according to the interwebs, consensus seems to be metal side facing out. Although other forums and results said if it's not marked, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go with metal side facing out. I guess exhaust goes on first because that has bolts in it, and then the intake has some dowel pins on the bottom. I guess we'll get a few exhaust bolts started. So I got the exhaust and the intake manifolds in place, and I took the valve cover, scraped it down, spray painted it with some high temp black paint, and then a coating of textured paint. So that looks nice. Got that in place. And before I put on the water pump and the other items, I thought let's get out the power washer while this is open and try and blow off some of this gunk so it's easier to work with. This little pressure washer was a Father's Day gift about 10 years ago, and man, I love this thing.
Oh golly, ain't that pretty.
So now I'm just left with some components to put on, like the non-working air conditioner pump, which is no more than an idler pulley at this point. The new water pump, thermostat housing. I did order a new idler pulley because this one's making a little bit of noise. Throttle position sensor because the one that was on there was cracked off. I guess I did that when I took it apart. And then install the radiator, the shroud, the fan, the belt. And that should be it. And 13mm, please. Oh, and I got all new ignition parts too. Wires, plugs, cap, rotor. I guess that's it. All right, we're all cleaned up, and I thought before I go any further, maybe I could just crank this over a little bit, make sure it sounds okay. So I reconnected the battery, I disconnected the fuel pump relay. The spark plug wires are not on anyway, so it wouldn't start. But I'll crank it over and just see if there are any strange noises. I really hope not. Well, that sounded okay to me. I did play the video back, heard a little clicking. I don't know if that's just something the microphone was rattling, or I don't think it was in the engine. I didn't hear anything when I was cranking it over. So, nothing major, it sounds like. Sounds like success. I'm going to keep putting it together. Okay, I seem to recall that you can't get the fan out without the shroud being off, or vice versa. I think you have to do it all together. So I've got the shroud laying in there. So I can put the fan in from here, I think. And then lay the shroud down. And the shroud goes wild. There's that. Just get that in there like that. And then Alfano goes like this. I probably should use water because then I could drain it if anything happens, but then if it's good, I'd have to drain the water anyway, so I'm just going to use antifreeze. All right, so this is the moment of truth. I got a couple folks off camera who are here just for emotional support, or to laugh at me, to tease me if it goes wrong. I'm not even going to get inside. I'm going to start it right here. Just have to wear in the belt a little bit. What do you think? Top that off. Well, it's been running about 20 minutes. I shut it off and tightened up the belt because I didn't have the tensioner quite tight yet. So got the belt tensioned up, started it back up, let it run. Like I said, it's probably been running about 20 minutes. It's reached full temperature and it sounds great. Now, even though it doesn't have that throttle position sensor and I have a code flashing for that, it's running and it revs up. So I'm gonna take it for a drive. Why not, right? Well, it's an automatic, and the good thing about these is that it's only a 3-speed automatic, so you only have, you know, a chance of 3 gears going bad instead of 4, 5, or 6. But it shifts pretty well. It feels all right. Hey, thanks for watching today. I appreciate you following along with this project. It was a little bit of a intense project, but in the end it worked out really well, and I feel really good about it. So if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed to the channel, I invite you to join us. And as always, I look forward to seeing you next time.